Hey everyone, how you doing? It's Mary Fain Brandt with a LinkedIn bakery serving up bite-sized tips so you don't get overwhelmed. You can find me here at my Facebook live show on the first and third Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time or Standard Time, depending what month. I am super excited for tonight's show. Why? Because I have Mike Alton here. Mike and I, we met online first, and then we connected on LinkedIn. And Mike is with Agora Pulse, because I always want to say plus, Agora Pulse, and Social Media Hat. And I'm not going to spill all the beans, but I heard Mike on Stephanie Liu's show. If you guys know Stephanie Liu, I call her my mini course muse, my Facebook Live muse, because definitely if it wasn't for Stephanie, I would not be here. So high five to my girl Steph. And so Mike and I had, we met online. I saw him on Stephanie's show, and you have that fear factor, right? Like, ooh, should I ask him? Should I? What if he says no? It's all good, right? So I asked Mike to be on my show, and he said yes. So I'm very thankful that you took the time out, because I know you have two beautiful girls, and you're in what state again?
I'm over in Missouri. I'm in St. Louis.
St. Louis, yeah. So you guys, It's not 7 o'clock his time. What is it, 9?
It is 9.
So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate that. And what's really cool is that Mike and I got to meet in person in June 30th at Social Media Day San Diego.
Right.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
There's so many different ones. So I'm really excited that we had the opportunity to actually meet. We took some pictures and that you're here tonight. Now I'm going to check and see who is on. So we've got Paula here and Kimberly. Kimberly is the one who does the HIPAA security stuff. So I was kind of going over Mike, who said they were going to join us. So you guys definitely, you know what? Let us know that you're here. Say hi, give us a thumbs up, a high five, some hearts, whatever you want to do. Just no poop, okay? No emoji poops. So we're going to get started here. I have tons of questions for you, Mike, and my audience does, because they were throwing out the questions in the event over there on my Facebook page. So I thought we would start with this question. Are you guys ready? What does blog? Are you ready? What does blog mean? Can you define that?
I love this question. It's such a good question, such a good place to start, because as we were talking about before we even started, it means different things to different people. Oh. And the key thing that I want to say to all of you listening right here is that your blog, it's just written content. That's all it is. Don't think of it like it's a personal journal. Don't think of it like it's someplace you have to publish on a regular basis, because those models of blogging don't apply to probably anybody who's watching this video. If everybody watching this video is an entrepreneur, that means your blog is just a place for you to put written content, and we'll talk about what that content looks like and how long, and we'll answer all those questions. But the whole point is to have written content that your audience can find that's going to help them.
Okay.
Right.
Great.
So you could call it articles. If it makes you uncomfortable, I don't like to blog. I don't want to be a blogger. Well, you're not. Right. You're a small business owner and you're creating content.
So one of the things when I hear blogger, I think of, now nobody get mad, mommy bloggers, they're blogging about health or recipes. Yeah. Does anyone else, when you hear the word blog, what do you think of? Do you think of articles and resources, or do you think of recipes and mommy bloggers? I don't know, because that's kind of what I think of. Is that how blogging started? What does blog stand for? Do the letters stand for something?
They stand for web log. And they go back 10 plus years. You would have a website, and on your website, you would keep a log or a personal journal of what it is you were doing. So you would web log, and that eventually became blog. You would blog as a verb. I hate words that go from being nouns to verbs. Nobody should ever do that. So you would blog about what you were doing, the experiences that you had, the stories you had to share, which that's fine. But nobody watching this besides me is a blogger. You aren't. You're not bloggers. No. You're business owners.
Yes, and we want to know.
You want to do content marketing. That's what you want to do. Content marketing, which is why a lot of times when I'm doing these shows and I'm writing my own articles, I talk about content. It's a very technical sounding word, but it's the most appropriate word because content can be video, and it can be audio, and it can be imagery, and it can be written.
Yeah, so Kimberly here, when I said, what does blog mean to you? She said curated content. So thank you, Kimberly. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your comments. Okay, so I think we're all clear. So what makes you a blogger?
Well, what makes me a blogger is that I create content for the sake of the content. I write because I enjoy writing. I write because I've created ways of monetizing that content specifically. Whereas if you are doing coaching, that's your business. Right? If you don't do coaching, you are not making money. And the reason for creating content is to market your coaching. So it's a subtle difference in perspective as to why it is that you're creating your content. I would love to write, and I get that not everybody else is like that way, but I really love to write. If I have to go a couple weeks because of scheduling and busyness and I don't have time to write, I'm like going through withdrawals and shaking a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because I really enjoy it. You know, that's part of what I do, not just for fun, but it's calming to me. It's self-satisfying. I feel like I've accomplished something. When I spend a Saturday afternoon and I write 4,000 or 5,000 words on a topic, I'm really happy about that. So it's important to me. But that's me.
Right.
That's not anybody of you.
That's
not any of you.
I like to write, but so some people know I'm dyslexic. So like writing, it takes me longer to do because I have a lot of thoughts and I got to get them out on the paper. And then I have to go back and make sure, is the verb in the right place? Did I describe it after? Because, you know, as a dyslexic, we swap things around and we put things in the wrong place. And then I swear I'm a little ADD, you know, who isn't these days, right? With social media. And so like the brain is always going. So I like to write, but it's it takes a little longer for me to get a polished something out there. So I just say that my style is casual and conversational. And I think that helps me not get so terrified of writing. So we have some questions over here. Can I be a blogger and write personal stories? Is that content? Now, Laura is a career coach with military spouses here in San Diego. So she helps military spouses find jobs because we all know moving around, being a military spouse, is really difficult. So she works for the Rosie Network here, which is a great network. So
that's awesome.
Would the personal stories tie into the career coaching or what?
Generally speaking, the answer is yes.
Okay.
In her case, it's an absolute yes. I say generally because it does depend on the business. In her case, absolutely. I would imagine that her customers and her potential customers are almost always going to be interested in reading about other people who've been in the same situation as them and how did they get through it. And the only extra tip I would put on top of that is make the customers the hero of those stories. Always, not you.
Right.
Not that you aren't, say Kimberly, not that you aren't necessarily doing that, but for anybody else who's listening, whenever you want to share a story, particularly about your customers, if it's a story about yourself, well then, what are you going to do? But if you're talking about your customers, whenever possible, it's not that your business came in and swooped in and saved the day. Right. Your business was there to help them and guide them. They save the day. They're the hero because everybody reading, they want to be the hero.
And they can't be you, but they could be that person, your client. Yes. Good tip. I hope that you guys all got that one down. Let's see. Kimberly just says, I haven't blogged in 2 weeks and she's feeling weird herself. So Kimberly obviously likes to blog as well. Okay, great. So we know what a blog is, who can be a blogger. It can be the personal stories. And so my best writing is when it comes from the heart and when it's personal. And when I can weave that into business, that's when I have the biggest success in any articles that I put out or videos that I put out. So good to know I can take those personal stories.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, one of the things that I tell people often, particularly if they're struggling with what to write about and they're spending a lot of time, write what's already in your head or in your heart, because it's there, and it will come out a lot easier once you get started versus the research paper where you want to teach somebody about a topic that maybe you don't know that much about. And so now you're going to spend hours and hours and hours digging up statistics and finding quotes like you're in college. I don't want to read that.
Right. I don't want to write it. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, I don't want to write it either.
Thank you. So do you want to tell, one of my biggest questions, and I think my audience when in our Facebook event is, so what does blogging do for you? Like, I know that you have a story. Now, you haven't told it yet because I want to be excited. I want to find out right now here live with all of you guys what Mike's story is and what blogging did for him. So let's just get right into that. Share with us because I'm super excited. I'm like sitting on the edge of my couch here. I'm like, okay, I want to hear this.
Well, I think it's funny. I don't know if you'll think it's funny. I didn't like to write.
Oh,
which is, I'm like, what?
What?
Yeah, in high
I don't
school,
understand.
I know, in high school, sophomore year of high school, I was failing English.
So there's hope for all of us.
English. So there's hope for everybody. Yeah. And now I'm going to date myself. This was 1990, before there were WordPress and all that kind of stuff. This is before Windows. And so my English teacher brought my parents in and said, hey, we got to do something here. Your little boy is failing English. And they're like, why? What's the problem? And she said, well, he'll turn in a writing assignment and I'll put notes on it. And the whole class, they get their writing assignments back with notes. They have to go back and
correct them.
And then turn it back in. And these were handwritten, 5-6 pages. And I just wouldn't do it because I can't stand to physically write.
Right.
But my English teacher, Mrs. Braun, love Mrs. Braun, she said, Mr. and Mrs. Alton, you should buy him a word processor.
Oh,
because if you get him a word processor, he can print it out and I can make corrections and then he can go back and he can do all the corrections on the computer. We never owned a computer. So this was our first computer that they bought because of my sophomore high school teacher, WordPress 3.1 or something like that on DOS 4. And I went from failing English to acing English and went to honors junior and advanced placement senior English and, aced English in high school because I have a very good command of language and it was the handwriting that was a problem for me. So, fast forward a couple decades, and now I've gotten on in college, I've gone through some careers, and I started my own business, and it was an internet marketing business.
Okay.
And I was creating content to build that internet marketing business, and it wasn't working. I was not reaching the right audience, but I found out in that process that I really liked to teach. I really liked to communicate through blog content. So I started the Social Media Hat in 2012 just as a place to put that content, a place to talk about Facebook and Twitter and blogging and anything else that was really content marketing.
Were you working in that social media space before you started Social Media Hat, or you were just interested, like it was a hobby and the interest of yours?
Well, it was something I was doing to try to sell websites, and that wasn't working.
Okay.
Right? People who wanted to learn about Twitter back in 2011 weren't interested in buying websites. And so there was a disconnect between what I was writing about and the audience I was trying to reach.
Okay.
So when I started the Social Media Hat, I didn't know what it was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to monetize it. I sold my time as a consultant. I tested all kinds of passive monetization things. But the real point, I'm getting around to the end of the story, is that as a result of the content that I was creating, I built a reputation.
Okay.
I generated awareness of myself as an author, as a teacher, as a consultant. I started doing speaking. I started doing live video like this. And that turned into a full-time job as the chief marketing officer of a big company making six figures for that particular company. And I kept blogging on the side. I kept writing about the tools that I loved. I was writing about Hootsuite all the time, and Hootsuite loved it. Hootsuite would republish my work all the time. I ended up taking all the stuff that I wrote about Hootsuite and put it together, added some more material, and published a book. I wrote the book on Hootsuite. And then a couple of years ago in San Diego at Social Media Marketing World, I was introduced to this guy named Emmerich, who happens to be the CEO of Agorapulse, who was a competitor of Hootsuite. And at the time, Hootsuite and I, we weren't homies anymore.
No.
So I was really interested.
No BFFs?
No. When a brand issues a cease and desist order because they don't want you publishing your book, that's not a good thing. Yeah, and that's a whole other story. Who knows what that was about. But anyways, and obviously I published it anyway. So,
good for you.
But I met Emmerich, and Emmerich showed me Agorapulse. I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is easy to use. He was just showing me on his phone how easy it was to keep up with Twitter and keep up with my Facebook page and so on. So I switched gears and started writing about Agorapulse a lot. And Emmerich loved it, of course. And I became an ambassador for Agorapulse. And then spring of this year, actually, we started talking late last year about me working for Emmerich full time. And he hired me in February, right before Social Media Marketing World this year, so that I could go and be the brand evangelist for Agorapulse. I'm now in charge of Agorapulse's ambassador program, which means
that sounds fascinating.
I go to conferences now all the time. I have to go to Paris 3 times a year. I know that's sad.
Your life is rough.
And I'm talking to social media professionals all day long. I love it. It's a dream job.
Oh my gosh, it sounds amazing. I'm sitting here going, what do I love that I use that I just want to start blogging about because then I want them to hire me? I'm like, seriously, like, oh, that's a huge bombshell, you guys. Okay. I'm going to have to take a moment here because I'm seriously got all these apps and programs going through my head going, which two do I want to just tackle? I love that story. And just by sharing your love and your insight, your experience about using Agorapulse, that led to that relationship, and they saw what you were doing. So it's all about just being authentic and true, really. At the end of the day.
Yeah, because I know not everybody listening is going to want to follow that kind of path, which I totally understand. If you've got your own business, you're not necessarily dreaming of working for somebody else. But some of the lessons are, like you said, creating great content and pursuing relationships and being open to whatever kinds of opportunities those might come. They might become partners. They might become influencers for you. They might hire you to be an influencer for them. You never know.
I love that word, opportunity. So I was just talking to one of my clients today, and she has, she's pivoting in her career, looking to leave this company and get into the online marketing. So we're looking at internships and different ways for her to do that. And she's got some different opportunities. And she was asking, what do you think about this one opportunity? It's very particular. It's more of an 8 to 5 thing, but it's at an online marketing company with potential to do some social media posting, things like this. And my answer to her and my answer to everyone listening, always be open to a conversation. You don't have to take it. As I told her, be open to the opportunity. Have that conversation. Meet with that person. Learn more about the opportunity. And then remember, as I told her, it's not for life. Because she's like, the 8 to 5. I'm like, maybe it's an 18-month gig and you get all that experience you need and then you jet. So I love that you said, always be open to that conversation and to that opportunity because we don't know where it's going to lead. Like you said, the influencer, a job, a client, a speaking gig, right? Mm-hmm. Now,
I could go on and on about the role that relationships have played in my career. The reason I met Emmerich is because I was introduced to him by Peg Fitzpatrick. Peg is a big-time social media blogger. She works with Guy Kawasaki. She's written the book, The Art of Social Media, and she's a dear friend of mine and has been since about 2013. Right after I started doing the right kinds of content in the right way, I met Peg, and we started reading each other and helping each other out. Just like Jen and Steph and I were always helping each other out. You never know. Back then Google Plus was a thing. And I'm like, Plus?
Google
Yeah,
Plus.
Google Plus was a thing. So Jen was just starting her career. Jen Harmon, for those of you watching, she was just starting her career as an Instagram expert, which she is amazing, right? So 2013, I don't use Instagram. I don't write about Instagram back then. So if people had Instagram questions, I said, you got to talk to Jen.
Right.
And I would share her stuff. And she was just getting started. So she was super, super appreciative to me for the support that I was giving her. Fast forward 4 years, I'm now back at Social Media Marketing World this year. And I'm in a new career. I'm trying to meet people. I'm trying to be an evangelist for Girl Pulse and make connections. She's been speaking there. This is her third or fourth year speaking there now, right? So she's now introducing me to everybody she knows, right? She's letting me tag along to the speaker dinner. And I'm not a speaker at Social Media Marketing World. I have never spoken at that conference, and I might never speak at that conference. People think I'm a speaker. Thanks to people like Jen. So it's all about those relationships.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in nurturing the relationships, finding the right relationships. So Jen has been instrumental, like helping me. She came on my Facebook show and she is just fabulous. I just saw her at the Facebook Community Boost event.
Yeah.
Stephanie Liu, Alex Cameron, Jen, Kendra, Heather Ryan, I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, I'm like rubbing elbows with these women that I'm like, wow, they're where I want to be one day, I think. Or I just want to go be a brand ambassador because I'm a brand ambassador already for local things. But I was like, wait, I want to get paid for it. There's ways. So somebody has a question. Besides, one question is, do you need an assistant? Hint, hint. I'll let you see that later. Right? So... Kimberly says, love to hear tips about becoming a brand ambassador. Do you have tips about that?
I do. And I just want to reiterate, everything that we've been talking about so far was made possible because I created content.
So
nobody would have known who I was.
So tip number one is create content, relevant
whether it's video
content.
Or audio or written. Whatever's going to work best for you, create content, because that's how you're able to share your knowledge and your personality.
Exactly.
Right?
And provide
so that's
value.
How people are going to know you. Yeah.
Always provide value.
So now when it comes to being a brand ambassador, a lot of it's being open opportunities and a lot of it's creating content.
Okay.
But it's also understanding which brands might be open to that kind of arrangement.
Okay.
Because it's new. Influencer marketing is new. Brand ambassadors are new. This isn't affiliate marketing.
Right.
It has some aspects and some similarities to affiliate marketing, to be sure. But we're not just paying people to share links and send them a commission check based on sales, because that's just pure affiliate marketing. We have partnerships with key people in the industry like Kim Garst and Ian Cleary and Jen and stuff. They're all ambassadors for Agorapulse, which means we get to create fun projects together. I approach Ian and say, hey, we want to build a resource that's going to be the number one resource for this. Is that something you want to be part of? And they're like, yeah, sign me up. Right now we're doing a series of Facebook Live videos, and we're just asking our ambassadors to come on a show for 30 minutes and share their top 5 favorite tools. And of course, Agorapulse is in there, right? But they're creating a 30-minute video, which we're then turning that video into blog content.
There you go.
It's some repurposing, and we're having them publish that blog content on their blogs.
So you're expanding the reach there.
So we're expanding the reach. Yep.
I love that. I love repurposing and expanding your reach by collaborating. So you really hit on like 3 of my favorite things. Seriously, brand ambassador. So I was a brand ambassador for HeraHub, which HeraHub is a local
co-working space, right?
Yes, for female entrepreneurs. It's where I first, one of the first business investments I made. And I always say, like, even today, it's the best investment I made. That community and having that professional space and the classes that they offer, it was awesome. And so I didn't know, I think it was last summer, about a year ago, they went through and they were watching our they had people that were watching our Twitter, our LinkedIn, and our Facebook posts. And I was always posting I was there, and I was posting this and that. And they handpicked like 10 of us to be their first brand ambassadors. So that's pretty cool because we already love them. We already shout their praises. Now they wanted to like give us some benefits for it and create official brand ambassadors. So
yeah, that's exactly what I do. I look for people who are already talking about my brand.
Exactly. So awesome. So let's go back a little more about the blogging. We've got some other people. Abigail says, what is the name of your guest? Oh, Abigail, you came in late. This is Mike Alton. Mike Alton is a blogger and works for Agora Pulse and has his own company, Social Media Hat. So we're talking about blogging and what blogging can do for you and what blogging means. So I'd like to hop back over. I love the brand ambassador stuff, you guys, but let's hop back over to blogging. We know what it is. You can do videos. So you're saying it's content. So it can be a video. It can be written podcast. That's not really blogging.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Oh, audio. Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't think about that as blogging.
Yeah, because what you could do is you can create the audio content. Maybe that's all you want is the audio content. And then you can publish to your blog a summary, some show notes. You can embed a player. And I say blog, but that could be your website or wherever else that you want to publish. And so you can start with the audio content.
I'm like, LinkedIn. I put stuff
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Should you publish to LinkedIn? And
probably not all of them.
Yes.
I would say just the relevant,
like. Should you solely publish to LinkedIn? No. You don't ever want to rely on somebody else's platform.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you want to host it yourself. You want ownership of it, yet you can share it out on other platforms.
Oh, yeah. You can totally share it out to LinkedIn, to Facebook, and that sort of thing. But LinkedIn specifically has
articles,
what they used to call Pulse, right? Where you can create full-on article content inside LinkedIn, like a Medium. Right, or even like Facebook Notes, even though Facebook kind of hides the notes for some reason. It's the same idea. You can create an article content on those platforms, and there's good reasons to do that. There's good reasons to sometimes syndicate, which is to basically copy and paste an article that you've already published on your own site, syndicate it to these other sites, or create some unique content for these other sites. But never do the other sites exclusively. Right, where I only ever publish to LinkedIn or I only ever publish to Medium, because they can go away.
True.
They can just shut you off, or the network can change. And if you don't think that that's possible, ask Vine users what happened to their content.
Oh, Vine, that's right.
Over 100 million people lost. I don't know how many 6-second videos. Some of them were for fun, but ask Zach King what that did for his business. Where that was it. He spoke at Social Media Marketing World 2 years ago because he was a Vine superstar.
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Now, because he is a superstar, he just recreated himself on Instagram and YouTube, and he's amazing. He does amazing videos. But back then, this was like, I'm sure he was having heart palpitations for 3 weeks. Trying to figure out, what am I going to do with the 10 million people that are following me on Vine?
And Vine goes,
bye-bye.
Not
following me over here now.
That's kind of like what we have Periscope. There's so many platforms that pop up. There's no guarantee of which one's going to be here. There's other platforms that are coming up like so I'm a LinkedIn strategist, right? That's what I do, and career coach. But there's these other platforms that are popping up like Alignable, Referral, and they're trying to be a referral thing. I'm not on those. That's a different topic, but I get what you're saying. So for Social Media Marketing World this year, I volunteer, and Amy Aram and Victor and Marissa, the 4 of us, we were volunteering. I was like, you guys, we should do recaps, and we'll have content, relevant content. So we did a 4-week series of our favorite speakers and stuff. So we had 4, each of us contributed a section. We talked about one speaker, and we did it every week, and we posted that on LinkedIn, but I also put that on my website. So I'm safe, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm safe, right? Speaking of platforms, so Laura's asking, is there a good platform site to get started?
The best option is to start with your own WordPress self-hosted website.
There you go, Laura.
Use inexpensive hosting. You can go with Bluehost, which is what I typically recommend. It's like $4 a month.
There you go.
If you want to start a business and you can't afford $4 a month, keep working. Don't quit your day job.
Right.
Right. You got to be able to invest a little bit of money.
Right.
But take the time to do that. You can go to Bluehost, $4 a month. It's paid annually, so you can get that deal. It's a little more expensive if you actually pay monthly. And there's just a big button, install WordPress.
Perfect. There you guys.
Oh, you gotta push.
There you go. Laura, go start your blog. I can't wait to see it. Make sure you share it with me. So we talked about videos and blogs, where to get started, because that's a big question for our audience. I have a couple questions, or Stephanie Lou did. I don't know if she's watching right now. We have like 60 something people like giving us hearts and high fives and stuff, which is great. Thanks, guys. Her questions were two parts. So one, comments. Do they matter? Like on LinkedIn, people can comment. Yeah. So on my website, where my articles, I call them articles, that teacher professor side of me.
Sure.
But we just changed it to blog. Like we literally just changed it. I'm like, it's going to be a blog. I'm going to jump into that. So we just changed it to blog on my website. But do we want comments? Are they important?
They can be, right? So a lot of it is going to depend on the industry and the nature of your audience, because comments can do a couple of things for you. First of all, that's user-generated content.
Right.
So if you get good conversations going in the comment section of your blog, that in itself has value, it has meaning, it has interest for your readers. And if they go into the comments and they start reading, they start participating, that's creating additional content for your site, that's helping your time on page, that's getting other people to come back to your site. So that's all helping your SEO, which is a wonderful thing.
That's what I was like, do comments help when there's more engagement on that blog, right?
Absolutely.
Does that help with the SEO?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then there's a second, more subtle thing that can happen, which is that people tend to ask questions in the comments. And again, this depends on your content. Some of you, the only comments you might get are great posts. I loved it. Thanks a lot, which is nice. Stokes our ego a little bit. But that's all that does. But when you get people asking more questions, they follow up and they say, I thought this was a great article, but could you help me understand this point? Sometimes that's something you can answer right there in the comments, and that helps that particular reader. Sometimes that gives you ideas for more content.
Bingo. That's the one I like. When people ask a question, whether it's on video, like right now, your blog, at a networking event, at a conference, you need to save that, write it down, tell Siri to add it to your notes section or something, because that creates content for you. I learned that one, but I forget that one, so thank you.
Yeah, the entire system that I teach for blogging, it uses a note-taking app. I prefer Evernote. You can use whatever you want, as long as you can organize by notebook and by individual notes. So like a Word doc is not a good system to create blog content.
So you use Evernote like on your computer?
I use Evernote on my computer and on my phone. So when I'm on the go, this is always with me. This is attached to me. So everywhere I go, I have access to Evernote, which means anytime I have an idea for a new blog post, it goes into my Evernote like that, because I will forget it if I don't put it in Evernote right away. And that includes comments, whether it's on my blog post or a social media post or inside a community, whether it's a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group or something like that. If someone asks a great question, I put it in Evernote. If I'm answering a question and I spend more than a couple sentences and more than 5 minutes answering that question, I finish it and then I copy and paste it and put it in Evernote. I have entire blog posts that I wrote on a social platform as an answer to somebody else's question, and then I just copied and pasted in Evernote, cleaned it up a little bit, and said, hey, so-and-so was in the Google Plus community and asked this question. Here's my answer. Boom. Because more people want to know.
Right. Okay, So you guys ever know, I'm using Google Docs right now for my blog. I have a blog folder and I put everything in there because I can access that from anywhere. And I'm trying to use the Google Drive for everything so I can access it from everywhere and not, this computer has just got too much stuff on it. It's time for a new computer. So
you'll find that if you are creating a lot of ideas for blog content, Google Docs inside a Google folder is a little more cumbersome.
Okay.
It's going to be a little more challenging for you to sift through those ideas and in-progress blog posts and think, okay, what do I feel like writing about today? Because one of the most important tenets I teach is to have time set aside on a regular basis just for writing. Yeah. Whether it's per day or per week or per month, that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you what you have to do with your time. But you need that time set aside. Because if you don't set aside the time, it's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
So for me, it's Saturday and Sunday afternoons when my little girls are sleeping.
I was going to say, wait, you have 2 little girls. How does that happen?
Yeah. Well, they're still taking naps now.
Oh, okay.
When they get a little older, I don't know what I'm going to do.
It's going to be like at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, or up earlier in the morning, right? But for most of us, it's actually morning. You get up, you work out, you get to breakfast or whatever you're going to do, and then maybe you've got some time before you get into your day that you can set that time aside to write. Maybe it's just 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be a lot of time, particularly if it's every day. But the point is, whenever that time happens, and now you sit down, you're going to write, well, what are you going to write about? You're going to go into your list of ideas, your list of in-progress blogs, and say, okay, well, what do I feel like writing about this morning? Maybe I feel like writing about LinkedIn ads. Maybe I feel like writing about measuring success with LinkedIn. Yeah. Maybe I feel like writing about
my favorite apps.
HIPAA laws. Maybe there's something I have to write about. Maybe that's going to take some precedence. But if it's kind of wide open, what you want to be able to do is quickly see all the ideas that you've already had, some of which you've already worked on.
So you really like the way Evernote lays that out and is visually appealing.
Because it's just a list of all the temporary titles that I've created.
I used to use Evernote and then I stopped. I don't know why. I just did. Kimberly, thank you for that advice. I might have to look back into it. We'll see. Kimberly has another question. What is the difference between categories and tags? So like on blogs, you see, I don't know if it's a tag or a category. Isn't the category the bigger picture and the tags are what could be?
Essentially that's it. Now, as a reader of somebody else's blog, it's not necessarily going to be evident and you really don't care. But this is for our own sanity, right?
Okay.
Categories are at a high level and they have got to be very, very limited. You cannot have a dozen categories. That doesn't make sense.
What are some of your categories that you use? Do you have categories?
I do. And right now my categories are blogging, social media, and email.
Okay.
And that's actually too broad.
Really?
That's this wide swath of everything that's within content marketing, and it's too broad. So I'm going to be honing it down probably to strictly blog, and I might not write about social media at all anymore. I haven't quite brought myself to totally limit it because I enjoy doing it. But I know for a fact that my audience today is still too broad. So that when I write about one of these topics, when I write about Facebook, I'm only interesting a portion of my audience. And I want to create a content that I know is going to interest a sizable percentage of my audience.
So are you saying don't niche it down? Because social media is broad, but Facebook is a little more specific. But to take it to be even more specific, it would be like Facebook ads or Facebook groups or Facebook pages, right?
Yeah.
That's like really niching it down.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, there's pros and cons to each approach, particularly in this space when we're talking about social media.
Right.
Anytime we talk about focusing on a particular platform or a particular aspect of a platform, we're putting our future at a little bit of jeopardy, right? Because that could change. Chatbots could go away next year,
right.
And if I've created a blog that's all about chatbots and they go away, then I'm SOL. But for other industries, that's not nearly as likely. So for those of you listening at home, and again, what you're going to want to do as entrepreneurs with your own business, your categories, generally speaking, they need to match up with your services or
right.
products. Right. So again, that's going to be really limited. You're not going to have 20 vastly different services. You're going to have a few very specific things that you do for people, and you want to file all of your content into those buckets. It's got to fit in one of those buckets, or it's not worth writing about.
Okay, so the categories are we call it the balcony, and the dance floor down here would be the tags, and so the tags are blog specific then, right? With that.
Yeah, they're just the topics that you're covering in that specific piece of content. Okay. So, to give again from my own example, let's say, social media is the category, and then I've written an article about Facebook ads. So now my tags are Facebook advertising, and advertising.
Okay. How many tags should you have? Is there Instagram's crazy, right? You put 20 hashtags. So on blogging, is there a minimum, a maximum? How many tags we should have? Is it just whatever's adequate?
Well, it's whatever makes the most sense.
Okay.
And as long as you're consistent, right? You don't want to say Facebook ads on one article and then Facebook advertising on another article, because now you've created two different tags for the same thing, but your site's not going to understand that, and your audience isn't going to understand that. And the whole point of categories and tags is to give people a way to click a button that will show them everything you've written on that particular topic.
Okay.
And so you do want to be strategic and tactical about how you create and how you use your categories and tags.
Have you created your categories and tags before you started blogging? Do you start your blogging? This is probably a question that people ask, well, I know I want to write about these two topics. So do I create my tags that I'm going to use so I'm always consistent?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can go beyond that with tags, which is fine. This week I had a guest post from Michaela Underhall. She works for Nimble, the CRM. Mm-hmm. And so that particular article was about influencer marketing. So, and social media. So it was, social media was the category. Influencer marketing was one of the tags. And I put Nimble as one of the tags. Okay. I don't know if I've ever mentioned Nimble in any of the posts, so that might be a tag that consists of one piece of content, but you never know. So those kinds of on-the-fly tags are fine.
Okay, good to know. So, I'm going to ask you this question. You can decline it or you can play along and answer. Are you guys ready?
Phone a friend.
Right? I'm super phone a friend. Grab your notes of your phone, right? Look it up on Evernote. So I want to ask you, what is your worst blog that you've ever done? So what I mean by worst, let's define that. You went back and read it and it didn't make sense. You got no engagement, or, just define that in your own sense. And then what you think, right? Got to go with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And what was your best blog? What blog are you so proud of, or it did something for you?
Okay. Well, it's funny that you mentioned good, bad, and ugly, because all three exist when it comes to blog content. And I like this question because I am just like all of you. I have had mistakes. I have terrible content sometimes. You never want to compare your beginning to someone else's middle, right? So, if you look at my current blog stats and you look at some of the content I've created recently, you might think, oh my gosh, I could never create amazing content like Mike, right? You can. You can.
You've
So
been doing this. That's really great.
yeah.
Do you follow Damian Ross at all from social
Oh
media?
yeah.
So his
Oh, yeah.
whole video series is like,
Yeah.
don't compare yourself. Everyone puts everything out on social media that, oh, I just made $10,000 and I'm speaking here. You know, we put all that good stuff out, but Damian reminds us that, hey, you know what? That's only this much of their business. So I appreciate that you're saying that, because I did look at some of your blogs. I'm like, oh, he's really good. I'm like,
Yeah, well, and Damien's a great example. He's on like day 100 and something, right?
150?
So that means, oh yeah, he's over 100 days of doing just this video series. Go back to day 1. Go back to day 2. They're not as polished, right? They're not as well edited as day 102, because he's got that experience. I often talk about a blogging muscle, which is a kind of a fun
I
analogy.
like that. I have like a visual now. It's kind of like my mind and my arm together. It's this blogging muscle. I like it.
Oh yeah. The content that I create today is exponentially better than the content that I was creating 6 years ago. I guarantee it. Now, that doesn't mean I still don't create doozies of terrible pieces of content. But like I said, there's good, bad, and there's ugly. We'll start with the ugly first, because the ugly content that I have created in the past, and I've created ugly content, doesn't see the light of day. It's so ugly, I get through it and I recognize that it's ugly, and it doesn't get published. It goes into what I call a burn bag, which means it sits in my Evernote.
Yet you keep it. You keep it, though. Is it a reminder?
I'm a hoarder.
Okay. I was like, well, why do you keep it if it's so bad?
I keep it because I'm a hoarder, but at some point I get tired of looking at it. At some point I realize, this is really, really ugly. You're never going to publish this. You shouldn't ever publish this. And so I move it into a different notebook within Evernote where I keep the uglies.
Okay.
There's also ideas for blog posts in there that,
you might
for
have
whatever
a good
reason,
idea
I know I'm never going to write. Maybe it's not. Like, I'm not writing about Google Plus anymore. I used to write a lot, but I'm never going to write about Google Plus again, unless somehow they magically decide to reinvent that network and it comes back. But I had dozens of pieces of content planned to write about Google Plus that at some point I just shelved it all because there's no longer any interest.
Right.
There's networks that are totally gone, like Blab and Vine. I had things in mind to write about those networks. So that's gone.
Okay.
Those are the ugly pile. Stuff I'm never going to write about, or stuff that I wrote. Like, I wrote an article once. Here I go, sharing what's not supposed to see the light of day. I wrote a Dear John letter, a Dear John formatted letter to a just kind of like a pretend avatar person who has a terrible blog. I thought, what if someone's got a really bad blog and I'm writing them a letter telling them why I'm breaking up with them as a subscriber because they're making all these mistakes with their blog. Oh, doesn't it sound like a wonderful idea?
It does. Like, it sounds terrible. Cool.
It was a terrible, terrible article.
I like the concept.
So it'll never be published.
Okay.
So there's that. That's the ugly. Now the bad posts, and I'm not talking about just when I was starting, because they're bad because I'm new, and everybody goes through that. I'm like Charlie Brown and Lucy.
Okay.
Because I like movies and I like TV shows.
Okay.
And I think everybody else should like the same movies and TV shows that I like. So I want to work them into my content, and I want to tell you why your marketing team should be like the Justice League and be able to, take on these huge adventures and fights and win the battles just like Justice League. And so I've created content like that over and over and over again, and they're all bad.
They're all bad. Why do you think they're bad? Is it because you're duplicating it? Like you're...
No, it's because that technique of trying to create an analogy or a metaphor between a real world business thing and a pretend world movie doesn't work. It's a trope, as they call it. And people are tired of that trope. And it's really hard to make that interesting and timeless.
Timeless. I think that's an important word. Timeless.
Yeah. I'm struggling to think of a very specific example. I've done some Star Wars ones, of course. If you haven't been able to tell from my background, Star Wars is part of my shtick.
Oh.
I've done some others for some other movies, or TV shows. I did. I wrote about Beauty and the Beast, the new one, and how that was repurposing. It's not good.
Okay. Well, tell us
article.
about, and Amanda's watching. She said, hi, Mike and Mary. Great to see you both on live. Hey, Amanda girl. Glad you could join us. Amanda Robinson.
She's awesome.
She is. I love Amanda. And audience, you guys are going to get to see Amanda because she's going to be on the Facebook Live show in the future. Woo! She just said yes today.
Did she know it? Oh, okay.
No.
She doesn't know it
Hey,
yet.
Amanda, guess what? You're going to be on the show. You're going to be here, girl. No, she said yes today. We just have to lock down the date. Awesome. So, Mike, tell us about what your favorite or best blog is and why.
Yeah. So there's a few out there that I've really enjoyed that have performed well, which is always one of the barometers of success, right? Well, what do other people think about the content? And it's funny that we mentioned Vine because it was an article about Vine. Oh. And I actually talk about this when I'm teaching blogging from the stage. I talk about this article specifically. It's a great case study in newsjacking, where you're actually writing about something that's happening in the moment, and you're sharing with your audience why they should care, what they should do. So in October of 2016, Vine published a blog post that said important news about Vine. It was late on a Thursday afternoon. I was like, what's this about? And they were announcing that they were shutting down Vine. Oh, crap. And this is how they were letting their users know that you've got 3 months to live and then we're done. And so as I read this short blog post, I knew my readers were going to want to know more because I'd written about Vine. It was one of the top 8 social networks at the time in terms of monthly users and everything. So I pumped out a blog post that said, hey, this is happening. And the title of the blog post was What's Happening to Vine? And I summarized their blog post, and then I filled in whatever information I could as to, what are your other options? Because Vine's not going to tell you can go to Instagram, but I can tell you can take those 6-second videos and upload them to Instagram or upload them to YouTube and so on. So I walked through all that in my article. It hit 30,000 page views in a day.
Get out.
Because I broke that news. Nobody was following the Vine blog.
It was happening right then. It was right then. If you can get on top of content of something that's just getting released, and you can take that and make it your own and spin it and spit it out that same day, like within 6 hours, you're golden. Like if you can do that.
It was awesome. And then but what happened is nobody else really wrote about it at that point because I'd already covered everything. So I was the number one search result for what's going on with Vine, what's happening with Vine. And that continued. It continues to this day. I am still the number one search result for what happened to Vine. Now I changed the name, but I changed the title after Vine actually closed down. It's now past tense. What happened to Vine? And I added Twitter shut it down or Twitter closed it down. I don't remember. And I kept adding to the article as Vine released more information. Oh, we're going to let you export your Vines, and we now have an app. We're not getting rid of the Vine app, but it's just a camera, and you can publish to Twitter. And I added all of that.
So that I got to interrupt you right there because that brings up another question for our listeners. Do you go back and edit blogs? Yeah. And you just answer that. Well, like, heck yeah. You go in and update them, add things to them. Because I've seen that like on, I don't know where, Daily Muse. I've seen him on some other blog channels where it says updated.
Update, yes.
Yeah, that's why. Okay, and then
that's why.
And then it brings it back.
That's one of the big, beautiful things about blog content, where it has an advantage over video or audio. We can't come back and edit this later.
No, that's not going to happen.
We can take out, but we can't put back in.
Yeah.
So I was able to expand that article and help more people. And this is, cool. I'm getting to the reason why it's my favorite. The success of the article aside, I mean, big people, Michael Hyatt was sharing this article, which was huge.
Wow.
But the biggest and the best compliment that I've ever gotten was on this particular article. It was in the comments. Some gal came in 4 months after I published it. Vine is now shut down completely.
Okay.
And she was trying to figure out why. She didn't know why. So she did a Google search. What happened to Vine? She came up with my article and she's reading it. And this is what she said in the comments. She said, as I was reading your article, I kept having questions. And as I continued to read the article, you kept answering my questions as though you were in my head. And this is the most amazing article I've ever read in my life. It's like,
let's all
wonderful.
take a moment.
Thank you. And that's why I do it, is to help people. And, it's not everybody articulates it as well as this particular reader did. And not every article is successful at doing what I wanted to accomplish with that particular article, but it happens. And the more I do it, the more content that I create and the more content that you create, the more often you'll have that kind of success, that kind of experience. Now, if I was selling a service and that particular piece of content was related to the service that I was selling, do you think that particular reader would have been a buyer?
Yeah. Because you were, you were providing value. You were providing information that she needed, and you were the one providing it. So when she had another question on something else and it was a service, she'd be all over that. That's a great story. I love that you shared the ugly, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that's what I always say. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So we have Valerie Fain joined. We're no relationship because, Mary Fain Brandt, Valerie Fain, we tried to figure out if we were related, but we're not, because there's not a lot of Fains in the world. She says I have a blog on WordPress. My best blog post that got thousands of hits was because I had photographed a rare car we had, and it was in the photo, and I tagged it. So having something in the photo that, and tagging that. What kind of car was it, Valerie?
Images are crucial. Every blog post that you ever publish, and everybody listening, please pay attention, because I will go check your blogs next week and I will look for this. Every blog post that you publish, if you aren't already doing this from this point on, I'll give you a pass on your old posts. So all your new content, it's got to have at least one featured image. And by featured image, I mean it's got to be a decent size. Usually landscape. I prefer 1024 by 512 because if I do that on every piece of content, anytime anybody shares my content, whether it's me or you or any other reader, they post it to Facebook, they post it to Twitter, they post it to LinkedIn, or they post it to Google+. The link preview will look the way I want it to look.
So what were the dimensions again? 1024 by?
1024 by 512. That's a 2-to-1 ratio.
Oh, it is.
And it's big enough so that you get the wide link preview. Now, if you've ever paid attention, really pay attention to how content is shared and how it appears on social media, Facebook is the best. If Facebook can find a picture, but it's a small one, then you get a little square here and some information to the right, and your picture's tiny. But if they can find a big picture, you get this nice, beautiful preview with the title and the description below it. That's what you want, because you want a nice picture that entices people, tells a little bit of the story, gets them interested in your content, and gets them to click the button to go through.
Okay, so everyone, the picture, the image should be 1024 by 512. That's really important. We can go back after your iMic and make sure that we put that in the show notes. So any links, I've got people asking, they want links to your social media sites. We'll have to go. You guys, I should have said this at the beginning. So Mike and I will go back in later tomorrow, because he's probably got to get some sleep, because it's almost 8 o'clock here. It's like 10 o'clock where he's at. But Mike and I will go back in and we'll respond to your questions. I know there's some people that want to get a hold of you. They want your social media links, and we put all that in the event, so you can jump over to the event on my Facebook page and get that information. But Mike and I will go back in. Please continue to ask your questions, specific questions, and we'll go in and answer those. And it is almost 8 o'clock, so I don't like to do anything really over an hour. I think I've kept you long enough. Valerie just said it was a 55 Chevy Del Rey. I don't know what that is. I'm not a car person, but yay. So Mike, why don't you tell people, so you're talking about you have a class or you teach how to blog. Is that available for people?
Yes and no. So, there's a couple things that I do today, and there's a couple things that are becoming later in the year. So right now today, I occasionally do live presentations and workshops.
Okay.
So like next week, I'm going into our PBS station here in St. Louis and doing a full day workshop for them on creating content and social media and live video and all of that. And of course, people can hire me for one-on-one stuff a little bit. I work for Gorpals full time, so pretty busy. But later this year, there'll be a membership group and possibly a course where blogging is going to be a central figure. But until then, go to thesocialmediahat.com.
There you go.
So much content. I have how to start a blog. Boom, takes you right there. In fact,
Sarah Lopez, that's yours. Go to his
If you
social
go to
media.
thesocialmediahat.com, you'll see blogging as one of the main categories right at the top. Start there.
Okay. Perfect. I could see you doing a course on that. So we've got people here. Valerie saying thank you. Paula said, great show. Thanks, Mary and Mike. Laura said thank you. So that's awesome. So you guys, all his information is in the event on the Facebook page, and we will go back in and interact with you and answer any questions. But Mike is, in my humble opinion, one of the best bloggers out there, and just a joy to know as a person. So thank you, Mike, for taking the time. This was awesome. I'm like, check. I got Mike Alton on my show. I'm like, woo! And all the tech stuff worked because Mike was here with me before you guys were. Let me just tell you, we had to reboot a couple systems because, tech, you can really count on it. Never, ever, said anybody.
Right. No kidding.
So you guys, thank you all for joining us tonight. Remember, you can find me here at Mary Fain Brandt Coaching and Consulting the first and third Wednesdays of the month at 7 p.m. And if you're interested, you can join. I've recently opened up my private Facebook group. It's the LinkedIn Bakery, serving up bite-sized tips. And we're going to be doing some fun things in there. It's a small membership of around 220 people. I am opening that up. It was only for past and current clients, but we're going to open that up and have some fun things like a LinkedIn pod day coming up in September. And if you don't know what a pod is, ask that question to me and I'll answer it. Okay. High fives, hugs and high fives. Ciao.